Hello, everyone. I hope that you guys are having an awesome and amazing day today. This is Saturday. I know this week went by so fast. So it's really hard to imagine hi, Nikki Pooh. Thank you for joining. It's really hard to imagine that today is already Saturday, but it is. And we are literally at the end of March. I feel like we just encountered January, but here we are stumbling, hopefully, and happily into April. Hi, Coach Play, with an I and not a Y, with an I. That's my husband. Thank you so much for joining. As some of you may know, my husband is a personal trainer and a fitness coach and a nutritionist. If you guys have any questions at all, definitely contact him about any of your fitness needs, or you have nutritional needs. You're still trying to maybe hit some goals with your weight loss journey, or just trying to stay fit and toned, or maybe even gain weight. Definitely contact him. He will get you right. So that's Coach Play with an I and not a Y, an I. So I want to thank you guys again for joining. I am here today with you guys to talk about Everyone Has a Story. As you guys know, started these lives last year and really just kind of accidentally stumbled upon it. And I think it was actually in the month of March last year, this journey began. And stumbled into talking about storyline content creation as well as character development, which is something that I'm very fond of. I'm an indie author, so story means so much to me. For me, it means literally the value and context of a book, the value and context of a movie, the value and context of a play, even a poem, is all built around this theme for me of story. How well was the story developed? How well were the characters texturized? Did it feel like someone that I could really touch and feel? Did the characters feel human? Did they have layers? I think about Shrek when I talk about layers. I think that so many of us are fond of the movie Shrek, and if you don't like Shrek, it's okay. I may give you an I, and that's it. But if you don't like Shrek, that's okay. But Shrek was one of my favorite movies, 1, 2, 3, 4, and even the little sub movies, because they gave those characters such great texture. The characters felt like you could really touch them, and they felt realistic. And just like he said, he was like, ogres have layers like an onion. And Donkey was like, oh, it's like a parfait. Well, regardless if you see it as a parfait or you see it as an onion, we have layers as humans. There's always something underneath that motivates us to do the good things that we do or the bad things that we do. And sometimes those motives can be unconscious. Sometimes they can be conscious to us. And sometimes it can be unconscious to the people that we're interacting with. So I love it whenever we can see that played out on the big screen. I love it whenever I can read it in a book. Story is just very important to me. And I can always feel whenever a writer or a director has left out a huge portion of the story, because I'm left with the question. And I don't like that. There's been a lot of different X-Men movies because I'm a Marvel fan. I love DC. I respect DC. But I am a Marvel fan. And our household of 12 people are Marvel fans, okay? So we love Marvel. There's hardly any characters that we don't like. But there's been a lot of different X-Men movies where they actually just didn't finish out their thought process with the story. So you're kind of like, okay, are they going to talk about who his dad is? Is it Magneto? Where are we at with this? And you get another installment of X-Men and it's not answered. It's just like, oh, okay, blank slate. We're just going to start off new. That bothers me. And that's how much I love story, because if something's not developed properly, it will bother me. So I just want to give you that back history. So let's fast forward to right now, today. And our topic of discussion is Everyone Has a Story. Now, because I like to, make sure that we're all on the same page, I looked up the word story. I'm going to scoot my girls over. This is Minnie Sheeta and this is Honey. They said hi. Now that they've said hi, I'm going to put their hands down. Scoot them over to the side real quick. All right, so because I think that it's really important that we're all on the same page, I did look up story so that I'm not just coming off and talking to you about story from what I think that it is, but we can all have a very clear definition from what is stated in the dictionary. All right, so according to the dictionary, story is when we look at it from a noun, which is what it is, a person, place, or thing. Story is an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. It is also an account of past events in someone's life or in the evolution of something. A narrative is a story or tell. It is an account of a series of related events or experiences, whether non-fictional or fictional. And of course, non-fictional would be like your biographies, your news reports, your documentaries, and fictionals, of course, are like your fairy tales and fables. So, why is this important? It's important because when we talk about the context of story and we talk about an account of an imaginary event or real people or fake people or real events, we want to make sure that we're keeping in mind the context of what we're talking about. Is this something that really did happen? Is this something that could happen? Is this something that, if it's having to deal with sci-fi, or fiction, is this something that could happen, but we still have to research to find out all the variables that would make this real? Now, part of the reason why, I'm trying to get them into a good location, part of the reason why today's episode is so important is because a lot of us have massive amounts of dolls, myself included. You can see my earlier post where I'm talking about spring cleaning. So if you want some more dolls, be free to purchase those. But nonetheless, a lot of us have a lot of different dolls. And we look at them and we're like, oh my God, they're so gorgeous. You're so gorgeous. I want to put you in my post and make photos with you, but I don't know your story. We can have a name for our dolls. We can even have an age for our dolls and really build up a strong character for the doll, but not know the story. My quest in everything that I do, regardless if it's writing a play or if it's writing a short story or if it's writing something just dedicated for my Instagram page, my quest is always to fulfill the story of the characters. This is a very hard quest though, because of the factor being now the time we know the story of our character. So what do we do in those situations when we do not have any clue of what to write for the doll, for the character? We have the age, we have the name. We may even have some background things like, oh, they went to this school and they're from this state or they're from this country, they're single, they're married, but we don't know what else to say. My greatest advice would be to pull from your life. Pull from your life. We are intricate beings. We have layers. Just like I said earlier about the green ogre Shrek. He said, ogres are like onions. We have layers. Something that is extremely just a bitter root and not all the time very tasty on its own, but yet it gives such great flavor and such healthy benefits, an onion does, to the meals that you eat. And Donkey talks about a parfait, which is a very sweet dessert and treat, but yet it also has layers. So it really does depend on the type of layering that you want to give to your character. Do you want it to be a sweet story? Or do you want it to be a story that has all these different spicy, bitter layers, but yet gives such great depth to your overall storyline? You decide. Is it an onion or is it a parfait? But the thing of it is, how do I get the story out? Look at yourself. What is it in your own story, in your own life, that you can pull from to place into the life of your characters? Now, I pull from my life pretty often. I pull from different resources that I see on TV. I just got done actually listening to an interview with the former NBA player and the life that that he has endured and experienced and where he's at right now. And unfortunately, he suffered a lot of trauma, a lot of tragedy, and hasn't really been able to live up to his greatest potential as a basketball player due to the different things that have taken place in his life. And he's now come to a place where he's kind of shut off from everyone and everything because he's experienced such tragedy and so much pain. And hopefully, I pray that he is able to come from the situation and rise up like a phoenix and be able to experience a whole new joy and be able to share his gifts and his talents with other people. But right now, he's in a hurting place. So when I see a story like that, because he was sharing his story, I then say, what characters could I create that shares that kind of pain? No, I'm not going to take his story or his life, but I'm not a man, and I haven't been able to experience everyone else's path. So when I hear what he says, I think, surely there's another character that I have that may have experienced some tragedies in their life. They may have had to raise themselves. They may have had to go through some issues of homelessness. And now they're fighting to be able to sustain the energy and the motivation to continue to go on. But I didn't pull that from me. I related to his story because I too have gone through some things. I too went to several different schools before college. I went to 8 different schools before I went to college. So I didn't get a chance to really form relationships and bonds with friends on the level that I could have because my mother was constantly moving and transferring me from one school to the next. We moved homes more than we did even me moving schools, unfortunately. So I didn't develop really strong relationships with friends. That was part of his story. So I was able to relate to him, which allowed me to listen to his story even more. I put this out there because maybe that's a tip for you as well. One, you can pull from experiences that you've had in your life, some good, some bad. Maybe, possibly, you can listen to someone else's interview and what they've gone through, the good things, the bad things, the failures, the successes to where they're at right now. And you can say, you know what, I kind of feel myself attracted to what you're saying because I too share a portion of what you've experienced. And so in me sharing a portion of what you experienced, I feel like I could write and develop a character that aligns with what you're saying. So that's something that you can always do as well. You can pull from what you have in your life. If that feels a little bit uncomfortable for you or you have a hard time really remembering everything that you've gone through, because that can happen. That can happen so easy where you're like, what have I gone through? Where am I at right now? I don't really think that it's entertaining enough to talk about, which it is because everyone has a story. But maybe right now it's hard for you to really think of something that you would want to dedicate into a storyline. So if that's the case, you can listen to someone's interview. There are plenty of them. Listen to Vlad TV. I'm not a fan of the interviewer, honestly. For personal reasons, but nonetheless, there are a lot of different interviews that he does with entertainers in the field, and you can be able to listen to the things that they've gone through in their life and pull details to create your own character. There's Entertainment Tonight. They do interviews with celebrities on there. You can listen to people talk about their albums and what they've done and how they were able to accomplish the feat of streaming their music online. You can listen to directors. You can listen to just ordinary, everyday people. And they have their stories online as well. They have interviews that they do with people who've lived on the streets, who are homeless. They have interviews online on YouTube of people who have been on crack, who have been on harsher, well, that's already a harsh drug, but who have been on harsh drugs and who have been on, and, who have been doing alcohol binges and so forth. They have interviews they've done with strippers. They have interviews that they've done, and I wasn't at all laughing about the harsher drugs. It was just that I was thinking, come on now, that is already a harsh drug, cocaine and crack. So more or less to myself was I doing that. But they have interviews they've done with strippers. They've had interviews that they've done with school teachers. It doesn't always have to be something really extreme. They have interviews with school teachers. They have interviews with ministers. They have interviews, anything that you can think of where you go, I think that this character is going to be a heart surgeon. You can go online on YouTube, find interviews of heart surgeons, and they may end up sharing with you more than just how they do a heart procedure. They may share with you how they came up, what kind of lifestyle that they had to come from. Not everybody comes from a 2-parent household. Not everyone comes from a household where they were always pushed and geared to study, medical terminology and be pushed to go into the medical field. Maybe they come from a family that were, blue collar, hardworking parents, and, maybe they were single parent. Maybe they were raised by an aunt and uncle. Maybe they were raised by grandparents. Maybe they were raised by people who were like, you know what, you're going to be working in the field just like we are, and there's no way you're going to college because none of us have ever done that. And maybe they had to fight through those odds to become who they are. Well, you can pull details from that to then put into your character. And it doesn't mean that you mimic their life, but you listen to what they say. You listen to what someone else says. And maybe in listening to what they say, it kind of, just resonates with you, and it makes you go, yeah, I went to a school like that. Maybe one of them says, I went to an all-girls school. And you go, you know what? I went to an all-girls school. So although I can't, phantom everything that they went through in that all-girls school, I can now, because I relate to what they just said about going to an all-girls school, I can now say, I remember my experiences being in an all-girls school and what that was like. So now I can put that detail into my character. So you have a story. The issue is just getting you to activate that story, to allow it to trigger. You need something that's just going to trigger those thoughts and allow those ideas to flow. Start. That's the thing. Just start. Even if all you have right now is just the name, the age, what school they went to, the field of work that they're in, start with that. Start off with the introduction post. Make another post and just put some interaction with the neighbor. Maybe they're just saying, hi, how are you? I'm off to work. Hope you have a good day. Yeah, hope you have a good day. And you can probably have a few posts just like that. And in your mind, you're going, this is going nowhere. I don't have posts with extremely long, lengthy dialogue and details. This is not working for me. It is still working for you. It doesn't have to be real long. It could just be that she took a walk, a stroll in the park, and she's admiring all the beautiful flowers that are coming into bloom during the spring. I hope you guys are having a good day. And that's the end of your post. And maybe you do that a few times, and then as you get more comfortable building up conversation and dialogue and forming a bond with your doll. That's key. It's so key that you form a bond with your doll / character. If you don't have a bond there, it's really hard to write for your doll. It is so hard to write for your doll. So you want to make sure that you're building that rapport with your doll as well. And as you post and you're building a rapport, you'll start to feel that story just flow through you. Now, one of the things that I do is that I keep a journal next to me. I keep the At Sacred Para storyline content creation and character development journal right next to me. Literally, this isn't even me putting a plug out there. This is just me being honest. You can ask my husband, you can ask my kids. I wake up at night and that's what I do. If I have an idea, I'm writing it down. And it may be an idea that I use right now for my storyline. It may be something I use later on. It may be an idea for a play. It may be me going back and going, oh, you know what? I know I haven't published that yet because I need to add this in the title. I need to add this detail right here. But me having the At Sacred Para storyline content creation and character development journal right next to me allows me to then be able to write those notes in there instead of me going, oh, I'll try to remember that tomorrow. I'm not going to remember it tomorrow. I have 10 kids, y'all, and a 10-month-old. So it's 10 kids, and he's the youngest, the 10-month-old. Hubby and I are not going to remember that. So if I tap him, I'm like, hey, I need you to remember this idea. We're not going to remember it the next day. The next day is literally a whole new day. And the main thing we're trying to do is the to-do list of what has to happen. I have to write that note when it's fresh. If it's something that has to deal with the origins of my character, well, I'm going to go to my At Sacred Para character origin book, my character origin journal. I'm going to go to the COJ. I'm going to write my notes as it pertains to Gloria. Oh, this isn't Gloria. This is Mini Sheeta. But as it pertains to Gloria, or as it pertains to Mama Catherine, or, I'm still developing Mini Sheeta's storyline. Some of her storyline is based on me, and some of her storyline isn't. One of the other things that I do want to point out, when we talk about that everyone has a story, one of the other things I want to point out is that I actually scatter my real life story amongst all of my characters. Some of them have, a lot of details from my life. Other ones not so. Some of them may just have like a little tiny tidbit. Gloria has a lot of my actual life. Then you have someone like, oh goodness, I can't even think of her name. I haven't actually used her in a while. Tyler, or no, I can't even think of her name. It was one of the names that my kids said, and I was like, hey, can I have that name? And that's probably why I can't remember her name right now. But it's the Naomi doll. With that particular doll, she talks about being a nun. Well, that was a portion of my story, my real life story. And that was something that I wanted to do, and always felt like I had missed my calling on that. And I don't think I miss my calling now. It was just, it's just done differently now. I dedicate my life to the Lord differently while being a wife and a mother of the children that he gave me. So that's something that I battled with for a long time, y'all. Yeah, y'all may not really believe me, but I battled with that for a long time because I felt like I was supposed to be a nun. And when I really started, having these romantic feelings, I used to fight myself on that because I was like, I'm not supposed to feel like that. And it wasn't how I was raised. My mom was a nun, but it was just something that I had felt God had impressed on my heart to do. So I had took that little tiny tidbit of my life and put that on that particular character. Only that. There's another character right now, Lulu. She talks about having dreams of her grandmother. That was a part of my life. When I was younger, I used to have dreams of my grandmother, only my grandmother was a kid. And I was a kid, and we would play. We would literally play. Yes, God put me on another path. So very true. So very true. And I'm learning every day how to embrace that new path. Because I fought with that. I was like, I'm supposed to be a nun. I'm supposed to be doing this. And so your journey will change. And you have to get to a place where you accept that. And that's something that you can put into your character. And actually, does your character accept it? Or does your character still battle it? Are they accepting the change? Or are they battling against this change? So that's another dynamic that you could put in there by putting your own life in there. Maybe, like for me, I have now accepted that I'm on a different path and I'm enjoying my path. I'm happy to be married. I'm happy to have my 10 children. I really am. I look at them right now, especially like when they're quiet and stuff, or even when they're interacting, it's always really interesting. The things that they say and how they behave and how their personalities are. Seeing my girls just recently, they were playing together, and I don't have siblings. So I didn't get a chance to have brothers to, interact with and play with, or, sisters to play with as well. So long story short, they were playing toys, and I got a chance to just listen to them and watch them. And even the unfair parts, like them trying to block someone out of the toys, out of playing for a little bit, and letting them know, hey, include your little sister. but it was still fun because I didn't have that. So I admire it. Um, so they're teaching me and they're growing me up. So, and vice versa, they're growing up and, it's fun being able to interact with them each and every day. But it's part of my story. And it's something that I can pull from to be able to utilize in my storyline and with my characters. So right now, like I said, I have Lulu and I have Taylor, and they're now talking about grandma, and Lulu saying, hey, I've been having dreams of grandma. Well, like I said, that's me pulling from my own story. I used to have dreams of my grandmother. We were both kids. We would both play together. And I would tell her, I was like, and I was in middle school, and I was like, I had a dream about you. And we were both playing, and we came back from school, and we were running around. And I can't really remember my grandmother's response, but I just remember those were such comforting dreams. So now being able to utilize that with my character is very therapeutic. And that's really what this is all about. Play therapy, adult play therapy. It is so essential that we embrace adult play therapy. Like I said, let's normalize adult play therapy. We normalize children playing with toys and having imaginary pretend events and imaginary lives. Why don't we do the same with ourselves? Instead of us being filled with this enormous burden of stress and worries, let's normalize adult play therapy. Let's give ourselves room to play because it is therapeutic. It's fun to be able to release our story, to be able to build and design the characters, and being able to put a portion of who we are in our characters. Although this is Mini Sheeta only has so much of my actual story. Some of what I'm creating with her is just abstract. Like I'm just pulling from different avenues and different details of other people to be able to form her. Like I said, with Gloria, she has a lot more of me. There's other characters who have little tiny splurges of me. One of the other things that I have learned is the beauty of being able to create characters from people who have even passed away. I had discussed this with one of my soul sisters on here, and it's been therapeutic for me. It's been really, really cathartic. So if you have someone who maybe you're still managing your grief around, they passed and it's still something that hurts, and you're wanting to find a way to self-heal, this is always a way of doing that, creating a story around that character, or I should say building a story and creating a character around that person. For me, I had a childhood buddy, Ali, who we used to just fight. We literally used to just fight growing up. We had fist fights in middle school and not really in high school, and we started to like simmer and cool off by the time high school took place. But we still had really big time arguments, and I used to be friends with his family and his cousins and stuff. And that's why I say we were basically almost like brothers and sisters. But that was just really my best friend. Years went by, and at a certain portion of time, we had stopped talking. I found out later on in my undergraduate year that he had cancer. And literally, when someone that you love, someone that you're friends with, someone that's in your family, someone that's maybe even an enemy, when you find out that they have cancer, for me, it was like nothing else mattered. Any arguments, any fights that we had when we were kids, and we were pretty close. Like he used to come over my house, he and his sister, for Halloween parties and stuff. So, we had a history, and we just had stopped talking. I can't remember if we like fell out or what. We just stopped talking. But then I ended up finding out he had cancer through some other friends who happened to know each other. We talked about things being a small world. Long story short, I decided, let me see what I can do to be there for him. I would go there to the hospital. I've reconnected with them. So whenever he would go to the hospital for treatment or anything like that, I would try to be there. And I was there whenever he was out of the hospital. We would go to like poetry readings and stuff. We went out for sushi because he loved sushi. I just wanted to be there. And, unfortunately he did pass away before he was able to meet anyone as far as getting married. He came to my wedding, which was a blessing for me. And then he knew about my pregnancy. He ended up passing away soon after my first son was born. And so my husband and I and my son, we were able to go to his memorial service. I bring this up because it still hurts. Like, that was my buddy. That was my buddy. That was the person I talked to about almost anything. Like, we had came to that good of a place. When you look at how we had been in 7th and 8th grade, because we were in band together and we were just at each other's neck. And then when you fast forward to being like 25, 26, I think I was 25. No, I was 26. I was 26 when he passed away. It was just really, really hard. And your mind is still trying to process how someone so young, because we were all the same age, how someone so young can pass away and not be able to really enjoy the fruits of life. And not just with marriage and children, but just being able to grow old. So I battled with that for a while. And what I found is that this hobby, being able to do this, has allowed me to develop a character named Ali and be able to give him that honor, right? Of being able to have a fiance, and hopefully, as my storyline progresses, having a wedding and having children, because that's what he didn't get while he was here. So I feel good in knowing I'm building a character and I'm building a story to give him. I'm sorry. To give him what he didn't have, because I wanted him to have that. I wanted him to have that real bad. I'm sorry. And he didn't get that. So when we build characters and we build stories, we need to be mindful that sometimes, I'm sorry, not all the time our story is just going to come from our own self, as far as it being the direct experiences that we have. We can build characters from people that are important to us, that we hold dear, and be able to give them that honor, that respect. Yes, honoring him through the story. It is, but I've just started. He was at the last event that I had, and this is actually his fiance right here. So he was at the last event that I had, but it felt so good to dress him up with the suit and to have him, be embraced by her, because I didn't get a chance to, see him have that or hear him, talk about someone. He came to my wedding with someone, and I was like, dude, look at you. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, get that. Because that's the kind of relationship we had. It was like, man, get that. That's, make that final. But he was always, in this mindset of, I don't want to get with someone to make her a widow. And I would be like, dude, don't think like that. Don't think like that. And he just, he didn't go any further than that. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining. So being able to give him that honor, building that character, it's okay. Thank goodness you reached out. Yes. And reconnecting before he passed. Yes. And we had some years together before he passed. And so that felt really good. And even when he went to the hospital, during like those latter times, my husband was able to come with me, and we were there with him. So that felt good to be able to do, but it feels even better to be able to honor him with this doll and have him in the storyline. I feel like if he were here, he would actually give me that blessing to do that. He'd be like, no, you're always doing something weird, go ahead and do it. So that makes me feel good to be able to do. So if you have a character and you're still maybe in bereavement. I'm still in bereavement. And I believe even when I'm 50 and 60 years old and I talk about this, I'm still going to be in my process of bereavement, because he influenced my life. He was a part of my story. So if you have someone that is a part of your story who may not be here anymore physically, you can include them in your storyline. You can develop a character and include them in your storyline. So that's something that I am honestly hands down looking forward to being able to expand upon, is just developing him, and maybe even showing some of the interactions that we had as kids between my mini Sheeta and him, because we argued a whole lot. That was like we argued and fought like all the daggone time, but that was still my buddy. So don't be afraid to include someone who even passed. So we talked about building storylines from yourself. We talked about listening to interviews with other celebrities or day-to-day people, or people who have gone through harsh situations in their life, or even fantastic situations. Maybe you want to have a doll that's a travel agent, or a doll that's a stewardess, on the airplanes and so forth. A flight attendant. There you go. That's the better name. Flight attendant. You can put that in your storyline, but you have to research just to listen to some interviews online of people who talk about being a flight attendant. You can put that in there. You can pull a story from someone who has passed, someone who was really important to you, and you're healing, or you've come to a really good place in your healing process where you now feel like you can include that doll, that character, and be able to model your story from them. Now, you don't have to include everything exact, but there's certain things that probably make you still smile, or certain things that may make you mad still. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we don't talk about that. Someone passes and we're like, we just put all these roses and flowers. There may be a story in your life and experience that you have with them that you still, you're still kind of mad about. And you can put that in there, and it's important to you, right? And it helps the flow of your story, and it helps really build texture for your character. So you can always create a character of someone who is also passed on. And the key thing that I want for you guys to take away from this is that you have a story. Never feel stuck when it comes to storytelling. Never feel stuck. Never feel stuck. You have layers within yourself. There's always going to be a story that you can pull from inside of you. All you have to do is just allow your mind to rest. Rest. If you already have a doll and you have a name, or maybe you don't even have a name, maybe you just have this really pretty doll and you're like, I have no clue what to name you. I have no clue what your occupation is, or if you're in school, or where you went to school, or if you're married. I have no clue. I just got you here. Make sure that this doll is the one that's supposed to be in your story. It may just be a pretty doll for your shelf. There's plenty of dolls that I have that I am just like, oh my God, this doll's so beautiful. And they're not in my story because they just don't speak to me. There's no story associated to them. They're just there to be pretty. And in being pretty, it's still therapeutic for me, because I look at them and I'm like, oh wow, you're so pretty. And it just makes me feel good. Some dolls are just there to make you feel good. Oh, he's so handsome. I like looking at them. Just like looking at them. So there's some dolls, hi Julie, that they're there just for you to look at. And then there's other dolls that are there for you to include in your storyline. So you need to define that. You need to know, is this doll for my storyline? Is this doll just for my shelf? Is this doll for me to give away? Is this doll for me to sell? What is the purpose of this doll? Once when I have figured out that this doll is for my story, I believe almost automatically the name is going to come to you. But if it shouldn't, there's other processes you can do. One, you can take an online vote. You can use this Instagram platform and you can ask people. I've seen it done several times. I've even done it myself. You can say, hey, I've got this beautiful doll right here. Have no clue what to name her. Do you guys know? They'll give you so many names. So many names. You can take votes. And then when you get some votes and you find out that 53% of people like this name and 20% of people like this name and almost 60% like this name, and I'm so off on the statistics, that's okay. But you can then cast another vote and be like, these are the two names. Lily and Honey, which one do you like? And then people will vote again. And then you can even do that with an occupation. I have her. I don't know if she should be a teacher or she should be a neuroscientist. What do you guys think? Guess what? We're going to vote. We're going to get involved. In fact, we feel even more connected to your page because you included us on something as important as developing your character. That's one option. You get us involved with your story. The second option that you can do that I like, play some Sims. I love some Sims. When I play Sims, literally, names come to me. Like if I'm stuck on a name for a doll, if I get my Sims out and I'm just right and I'm creating this character, all of a sudden names come to me. Rebecca, Jean, Claude, Van Damme. It's like an old 80s, 90s actor, right? But nonetheless, all kinds of names will come to me. And I then look at my dolls and like names will just come. Sims are a great way to get different names and be able to create different fashions for your dolls, to be able to create and build a storyline. Sims can really help you with that. So do not neglect the Sims. You can go there and kind of, it'll get your mind off of character building, off of storyline, and then refocus your energies. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, okay, I know what I'm going to do with this doll. I know how I want to build her. I know how I want to build him. So if you really just have no clue, you just have this really pretty doll, you know that the doll is supposed to be a part of your account, and you're supposed to post pictures, but you just don't know anything else, reach out to us, put those votes out there. I guarantee you, we are going to participate. Number 2 idea, which is like an and or, you can always go get on your Sims, stream that game, design your character, and I'm telling you, ideas are going to start flowing for the other character that you had no idea that you would be able to create. So I will take any questions that you have or any comments. Thank you. Any questions that you have about how to build a story, because everyone has a story. That's the thing. Always remember, you always have a story. And I'll review it real quick. 1, the story is in you. You can use your own story. If you've lived over 7 years, you have a lot of story in you because you've had a lot of experiences. Use those stories. It could be a story of when you went fishing. It could be a story of you, maybe when you went fishing, you had something really crazy take place. I don't know. I have one. I went fishing before with my aunt and her husband at that time. And I was so excited. I think I was like 6 or 7. Oh, no. I had to be around 7 or 8. But I was really excited. We're late at night fishing. And I need to go to the car. I think they told me go to the car, go get something. This is like those old school, I think it was the Acclaim, in fact. It was like those old school cars with the heavy, heavy doors. I go to the car, open the door, swing it, getting whatever out, close the door, my hand's right there, bam! Finger got caught. And of course I cried. I cried real bad. My finger was just bleeding. And eventually, it did stop bleeding. But like, the nail got all black. And I was one of those kids that will like show you my nail. I can't remember if it was this finger or that finger. I want to say it was this finger. Dude, I went around to people I knew, strangers. I was like, look at my finger! Look at my finger! Look at that! And eventually, it fell off. Like there was nothing there. It was just weird. It was really, really weird. I had to wait for the nail to grow back in, which now they have grown back in. Thank you, Jesus, because it was pretty bad. It was really, really bad. But that's my story. Going fishing with my aunt and her husband at the time. Slamming my finger in the door, and then that whole process. Well, that's something I could include with my dolls. I can easily incorporate that with my dolls. They went fishing and a little girl or a little boy even, slammed their finger into the door. What happens from there? Well, if I wanted to, either I can do an exact copy of how the finger healed, and the little kid just went around showing people their gross little finger. And then, the nail fell off and it grew back. Well, I could do that, or I could just expand it out. Like maybe this kid is I can't really think of the name right now, but maybe like they have issues with blood clotting. So they slam their finger, and when they start bleeding, they can't get the bleeding to stop. So they have to rush. Oh my goodness, like the name is like in my head and I can't really get it out all the way, but like whenever you have issues with your blood clotting. They had to rush the kid to the hospital, and it becomes almost like a life or death situation. What's going to happen? So that didn't happen to me, but me just slamming my finger in the door is one portion of my story that I can then use my creative energies to see what would happen next if I just throw in this other, circumstance. Child doesn't clot, the blood doesn't clot. So the bleeding doesn't stop. What happens now? So that's an idea. You can pull from your situation. I want to know what happens now. Exactly. That's what Fairy of Wind said. So you can pull from your situation. And when you pull from your situation, just expand it. Just go a whole nother direction. You can use your own and pattern exact. Or you could just say, what would happen if we throw this in there? And it adds that drama. So you can pull from your own life. You can pull from other people's lives. Like I said, right before I even came on this live today, I listened to a former NBA player talk about his life and the different tragedies that he went through and how he was able to overcome them. And yet the things that he's still dealing with. That's something I can listen to and pull from. Well, if you have someone that is a basketball player, or someone that's an athlete, someone that's in medical field, someone that's an entertainer, someone who's gone through a whole lot and maybe been on drugs, who was a stripper, you have someone who played chess, someone who was a marathon runner, and you're wondering, where do I get the story from? Guess what? Go to YouTube. Go online. There are so many people who are talking about their story. You have someone who is pregnant and you're like, I've never been pregnant before. Go online. Go to YouTube. Talk about it. Find out, or I should say, write it in that little box. Interviews with pregnant women. I'm telling you, they're going to talk about it. You're going to find some interviews. It's going to resonate with you, and then you'll be able to write it. I love some suspense and storylines. Yes, YouTube has everything on there. It does. It does. So any questions that you have about characters and you're saying, I've never gone through this, I don't know how to write it, go online. You will find interviews of dynamic individuals who are willingly giving you information about their life history, how it was when they first started, what they went through in the process to where they're at now. And you can pull from different people as well as even yourself, because it will trigger some thoughts for you as well. And then you can create your characters. And the third thing that we discussed was if you have someone in your life who you love very much, you were cool with, you were best buddies with, someone in your family who passed away and you may still be dealing with that, and you've come to a place in your healing process where you are comfortable creating a character, because that's key. I wouldn't say if and I'll use like my own situation. My grandfather passed away last March, or no, actually it wasn't last March. It was in 2020. Everything's going by so fast. So it was in 2020. Am I at a place right now to make a character of him and put it in my storyline? I don't think so. I'm just not there yet. I'm still processing. Whereas with Ali, this happened, oh goodness, in 2008. So for me, and it doesn't really matter about the time, because there could be someone who passed away 30 years ago and you're still processing it. So the years don't mean anything. It's just that for me, I am in a more comfortable place to create a character after Ali and give him that honor. But if it's something that's extremely fresh, you may not be comfortable. But in the same hand, it may be someone who passed and it's still fresh for you. And part of what's going to help you therapy-wise is to put them into your storyline, to build a character around them, about them, and put them in your storyline. I say do it. Do it. One of the things, I'm going to leave this as my lasting note. One of the things that I learned in therapy, because one, I do have my degree in therapy and I do have certificates for coaching. But what's even of greater depth to me is that I had to go to therapy. And I don't think that we talk about that enough in our global culture, but especially in our westernized culture. We do not talk about therapy enough. And now that we've had the pandemic, we have, kind of opened up that that door to talk about mental health and to talk about mental wellness and to talk about the importance of talking to someone else who will understand your mental needs and what you need to be able to be healthy and healed. One of the things that's required of you to graduate in counseling and to graduate, especially in psychology, is that you have to attend therapy. You have to have therapy sessions and you have to attend those on a regular basis. And I learned so much about myself and who I am and what was still ailing me. To this day, I'm still learning things about myself. Stuff still comes up that was way back in the attic of my mind that I'm like, okay, I gotta release this. I gotta vent this. I gotta, talk about this. And I'm very blessed. I have a compassionate husband that I can be vulnerable with and talk to. But it's important for you to have someone to talk to. I went through some tragedies in my younger years, in my elementary years. And although I didn't attend therapy that long, I attended therapy long enough for them to use puppets for me to be able to talk about what had happened to me. So we used the puppets in order to, find out like what's going on in that little bitty mind of yours. What happened? So I learned then, years later, and I didn't even think about this really until recently. Years later, I was like, wow, I was really doing play therapy then and didn't realize it because I was the client and I was having to discuss and talk to the therapist and use these toys to be able to talk about what had happened to me and what my mind was thinking. And for me being that kid using those puppets, it didn't feel like I was talking to the adult. It felt like I was talking to the puppet. My puppet was talking to their puppet. And the human didn't exist. And to a certain degree, I didn't even exist. It was just the puppet. Now, unfortunately, because especially in our Black community, and I hope that we're getting better about therapy, but back then especially, therapy was really shunned. It was like, okay, you go to therapy, you're crazy. That wasn't the case. If anything, you're allowing yourself to release the unhealthy stuff, right? The toxicity, so that you can take in the health, so that you can keep moving forward. That's really what therapy is about. So that whenever you encounter another situation, you experience something else that's traumatic or something that's stressful, you will have the necessary tools in your life to deal with it. That's what therapy is for. We don't talk about that enough. And hopefully now, like I said, with the pandemic being here and everything else that we're experiencing globally, different wars and famines, hopefully we're coming to a place now where mental wholeness and wellness is more supported. I see it more on our internet. I see it more, when we turn on the TV, there is more conversation about therapy because it's important. So I didn't realize at the time how important it was in elementary because I was just kind of getting through the process of my situation. My mom was kind of afraid of therapy, and that's why I didn't get a chance to attend as many sessions because she was like, you already went twice, that's enough. That wasn't enough. I needed more. And it came out years later when I went to undergrad and I had to do the required therapy sessions. It was like, why did I get taken out? I needed it. I needed to still go. And I'm so thankful that with this doll hobby, with our adult play therapy, I'm now able to release the stories and release the characters that have been plaguing me for, however long, and being able to share that with you guys. Because every post that I put out, and every time whenever I conversate with you guys, and we talk about adult play therapy, we talk about storyline development, we talk about character development, it is literally like therapy for me. It helps me. And hopefully it helps you. That's really my hope, is that it does help you as well. And you are right. People do avoid therapy like a plague, and it's unfortunate. And like I said, I do hope that now we have gotten to a place where we are welcoming and embracing therapy, because we talk about mental health, we talk about mental wellness. So I really do hope that compared to where I was in elementary, that now, fast forwarding in time, we have embraced it more. And that's part of what we do right here with adult play therapy. regardless if it's storylines or it's fashion or it's nature or it's crafting or it's dioramas or it's all of it. We are embracing our own personal self-healing, our own personal therapy. So I want to thank you guys for being with me today. Thank you for joining. If you're just now joining, please, please, please listen to this. Go all the way back and listen to this because there's so many different nuggets. It's helped me. I was able to cry a little bit and I feel a lot better right now. And I'm hoping that you guys are able to realize that you have a story in you. You have something that we all can grow and learn from and heal from. So thank you guys again for being with me. I'll be with you again next Saturday. So you guys have an awesome and amazing week. I'm looking forward to reading your posts and being able to see all the beautiful pictures that you guys have in your crafts. So have an amazing weekend and a good week, and I'll see you guys again next week. Bye-bye.